Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the House of Bloodstein, Mentralysis, Part 1, Chapter 4, Visit from Sarah. And I'm in a bit of a quandary. This is the final chapter in Part 1, Dreams in the Wailing Room. It's been an odd, weird, possibly kind of disquieting, maybe a little creepy beginning to the story. This is the final chapter, then we move on to Part 2, which is called The Immortal, and questions will be answered from the jump. And I'm not sure. This chapter is only 4 pages long. It's not even 4 full pages. It's going to be really short. But then if I go on to read the next chapter after that might get on the longish side. So I'll think about it. In our last chapter, we moved away from Cana and visited with Magistrate Kilos, who was having a dream. Kilos is from Onaris. She's a very analytical. Then it takes a lot to scare them or make them excited or put them off. They usually just see everything that's happening around them with a grain of salt and casually like, I'm dying right now. I'll be dead in a few minutes. Whatever. So Magistrate Kilos having a dream that she was walking on the beach wearing her old marine clothes, which she hasn't worn since book 2 of the League of Elder series. And she knew she was having a dream. It seemed to be a nice one. She let it play out. And in the dream, she saw a little church just off the surf. And there in the church was Philip of Blanchford and Thomasina the 19th of Wham, who have been an item for a couple books now. And they were in the process of getting married. And if you remember from the previous Bloodstein book, at the very end, Philip and Thomasina eloped. They didn't want a big Vith ceremony and go through all the pomp and circumstance that entails, so they just hightailed it out just to make it happen in some quaint little church. And Kai is dreaming about it. And a lot of the things that happen to Kai in this dream isn't just there for giggles. There's ramifications later on in the book for pretty much everything that she sees in this dream. Just giving you a hint. Think nothing of it. In the church, Kai sees a girl who called herself Lady Chrysania. Remember her from the previous book. Was in the back hiding something. It was like a dial on a long pole, and she was hiding it under the floorboards of the church. And Kai's like, "Who are you hiding this from?" And she said, "From her." Kai looks out the window, and there was this big patch of darkness blaring in, and Kai's like, "Oh, that's just Sam. Sam's a sweetheart. She looks kind of weird with her, pale skin and black eyes, but she's not a mean bone in her body. Come on in, Sam." And Sam comes in, and she seems to be very mean. She seems very spiteful, angry, vindictive, whatever you want to call it, towards this girl, this Lady Chrysania, and wasn't acting at all like Sam. Her nails were really long. She grabs this girl, drags her outside, and as Kai follows them to see what's going on, all of a sudden Kai realizes this dream is turning bad and decides like, "Hey, I need to wake up. But she wakes up in total darkness where she can't hear or see anything. And she's sitting in some cold, humid room wearing, crappy, coarse burlap sack-like clothes. She can't really move. She feels all kinds of things inserted into her arms and legs. She can't take a breath. She's desperate to take a breath. She'll go insane if she doesn't get to take a breath. She knew, even though she couldn't see him, that her little magical bird Tweeter was there with her wherever she was, and that she was imploring Tweeter, "Abandon me, go to my son." Final chapter in Part 1, Visit from Sarah. Let's see if we can make some sense out of all this. Kai was troubled all the way to her office in the heart of Blanchford Village. Bad dreams. Terrifying dreams, actually. Usually Kai's dreams didn't faze her much. They were always cloudy and farcical and mostly forgotten before breakfast. She often dreamed of beating up her sister Maya. She and Maya were similar in age, similar in size, size and similar in temperament, so when they came to blows, which was often growing up on Onaris, it was a toss-up who would win. One fight in particular that she lost to Maya, Kai sometimes revisited in her dreams. If I'd moved this way, or if I'd thrown Mother's prized vase, or kicked some dirt in her face, I would have won. She loved Maya. Those were good dreams, worth having. Lately, though, her dreams were ghastly and unsettling. She woke up desperate for a clear breath. The dire images stayed with her all day long. They were full of smothering and helplessness. That was the worst part, being helpless. Watching her friends die and not knowing where her son was. Kai took the tunnels to her office. There was a nice, easy tunnel in the grove that went all the way down to Cyan Town, popping out in a garden fox shrine, just a short walk from her office, and she didn't even have to crawl or get dirty. That way, she could be alone with her troubled thoughts. As always, Tweeter sat on her shoulder, providing light and energy. When she got into her office, a person was waiting to have a word with her on the comm. She disliked first thing in the morning communications. She liked to settle in, read her posts, toss back a nip, and decide what issues to tackle that day. People waiting for her right off the bat made her feel rushed, and nobody was going to rush Kai. She removed her coat and made herself a drink with deliberate slowness, hoping to punish the early morning caller with a lengthy delay. She seated herself and leaned back. Tweeter flapped over to his bell stand and went to work on the bells, as was his habit, pecking out a pleasing tune. The comm relentlessly blinked, demanding to be answered. At last, Kai sighed and answered the comm. "Magistrate Kilos," she said in a dry fashion. On the screen appeared a businesslike man she had never seen before. He was clearly a hospitaller, wearing his black and silver uniform with starched particular care. He had short, sandy hair, parted in a conservative fashion. He gazed at her, mirthless and serious. "Good morning," he finally said. "My name is Rawl, Lord of Niles. I'm a hospitaller." Kai nodded. "Yep, I can see that. What can I do for you?" "The question, madam, what can I do for you?" Kai wasn't in the mood for games. "What?" she said with a sour note. Rawl checked his screens. "You have resisted our standard efforts to keep you in calm sedation." "What?" Kai repeated, becoming perturbed. More checking of his screens. "We've had numerous events, 4 today, 3 yesterday, and 5 the day prior. All calamitous given the RDP running, and all very consuming of my assistant's time. Frankly, I'm not quite sure what to do with you." Kai set her drink down. "Listen, buddy, I'd have figured a hospitaller would have more important things to do with his morning than calm me up and play a dumb joke. Did Crummy at the Drunken Eel put you up to this? I'm afraid I do not know a person named Crummy. Maybe you're not a hospitaller. Maybe you're some sick freak who likes wasting my time. Slot off, okay, and be glad we're not face to face. Otherwise I'd be slugging you in the mush. Please, Magistrate, I'm speaking of matters of the utmost gravity. I'm afraid we might have to terminate this venture." "Terminate!" Kai cried. "Sounds good to me. Let's terminate." She cut the link before Rawl of Niles could say another word. Kai sat there and stewed. What a sick freak. She finished up her work and then headed out to her bar several blocks to the north near the cathedral. Kai loved her bar, and business was good. She went in, rubbed elbows with the regulars for a bit, and then exited to the private area in the back. She stumped up the stairs and went into the dark and leathery environments of her private lounge. Somebody was waiting for her. It was Sarah. "Oh, here's trouble," Kai said, walking up to the bar and pouring herself a drink. "What's up, Sarah? And no, I don't have anything for you to look at right now, if that's what you're wanting." Sarah stood by the picture window overlooking the bay. She seemed unusually straight up and serious, very unlike the wide-eyed, hyperventilating, head on a swivel the way she usually was. She offered a small smile. Kai expected the usual crowd of people with her. Her brother, Philip, Thomasina if she was around, Kay and Sam, the gang, the crew. Though Kai was a loner and rather salty, she liked being part of a select group of close friends, whom she knew well and trusted. Kai, despite her complaints, liked being part of the gang, but today it was just Sarah. "Morning, Kai. How are you?" she asked in an unusually quiet voice. Kai tossed back her drink. I'm fine. She looked around. Where's everybody? You don't roll alone if you can help it. Just me today. She gazed at Kai with a concerned, almost careworn expression. To be burdened by the troubles of the world. That was not Sarah Blanchford. Always fresh, always new and full of life. Ready for the next adventure. Annoying, certainly, but steady, consistent, and also comforting in an odd way. Sarah didn't waste time. I'm worried about you, Kai. Worried about me? What for? Kai felt a headache coming on. You want a drink? Sarah shook her head. She came forward, taking Kai by the hand. She had a pained, mournful look on her face. I'm worried, Kai. I'm worried we're gonna lose you. You're like family to us. Her voice cracked with growing emotion. You've been there my entire life, part of who I am. And Philip and Kay too, is thanks to your example. Kai was confused. Well, you're welcome. She tried to take her hand back, but Sarah wasn't letting go. She clung to it, almost desperate. Where am I going, Sarah? You're not gonna lose me. This is my home now. This is my place. You and the gang. You're gonna be mentors for my son. Kai felt herself growing short of breath. Sarah didn't seem to know what to say. She opened her mouth and considered each word carefully. Spit it out. I need to level with you about a few things. She seemed on the verge of tears. Oh, yeah? What things? Kai had seen Sarah like this once before, weeping over Kay as he lay on his deathbed. Sarah, unabashed, grieving for him full force, thinking he was going to die. Hey, what's wrong, Sarah? You can tell me. Sarah put her arms around Kai's neck and wept into her shoulder. After a few minutes, Sarah pulled back, her eyes puffy, like she had gone face first into a briar patch. I'm trying to save you, Kai. I don't want you to die. Kai tried to reassure her. I'm not gonna die, Sarah. I'm fine. Sarah shook her head. No, Kai, you're not fine. And you know it. You're at the end of the line here. Normally, Kai should be annoyed by all this. Should be boxing Sarah's ears and throwing her out of her lounge on her butt. But having known her since she was an infant, Kai knew how to read Sarah. Could determine when she was on a freaked out bender with her head in the clouds, when she was serious. And right now, she was deadly serious. Kai fetched Sarah a cup of coffee. Sarah took the cup and held it in her hands. You've had a terrible dream lately, haven't you? About smothering, about being buried alive in your own body. The worst dream you could ever have. Tell me I'm right. Horrid memories flashed across Kai's thoughts. Breathe. Can't breathe. Going mad. Tweeter abandoned me. Go to my son. Kai nodded. Yeah, that's right. Sarah struggled for words. And deep down, that wasn't a dream. This is the dream. Right here, right now. The reality is that hard place where you can't hear or breathe or see. Kai stared at Sarah in horror, trying to be impassive, trying to maintain her cool. Sarah went on. You're in a dream, Kai. And you're fighting it. So damn stubborn, you won't just lay back and dream. You know you're in trouble, and you won't let them help you. Kai took another drink of her coffee, having difficulty swallowing. The Hospitallers have had it with you, Kai. They're ready to pull the plug. As a last-ditch effort, I decided to come to you and be as square as I can. Sarah choked up a moment. You know I love you, Kai. You're like family, like a big sister. I looked up to you, standing by my uncle's side all those years. I wanted to be you. Kai blushed a little. You should pick your role models a little better, kid. No way. It was from you that I learned to be bold and tenacious, to be loyal, then that to love someone means you're not afraid to bust them in the mouth when they need it. I couldn't have had a better role model. Philip and Kay too. All of us have been enriched by your presence, and I'm not letting you go. And now here I am, trying to save your life. I would never stop missing you if you were gone. Sarah stood and leaned over Kai's bar. So this is me, busting you in the mouth. Kai gazed at Sarah and saw much of herself in this blue-haired Vith kid. All right, Sarah, I'm listening. What do I need to do? I certainly don't want to die. I want to watch my son grow and become a young man. I want to have more children with my husband. I want to sit on the terrace and go to Brant ball matches and eat at the table with you and everybody else. I guess I'd miss you too. So tell me, what do I need to do? Sarah brightened and wiped her face. That's what I wanted to hear. So get ready. I'm going to game you up. You're going to have the weirdest dreams of your life. Just ride them out. Let them play. I know you're going to get through this. Are you ready? Sure, but wait, what happened? How did this happen to us? Sarah shrugged. Castle was infiltrated, and they got every one of us. We're all sitting in that room with you, blanks like Lady Chrysania. We've been betrayed. Betrayed? A blinding light came from under the door. The light surged with energy. Who betrayed us? Kai asked. How can I help? Don't know yet, but they got us. Castle Blanchford has fallen. Go through the door, Kai. That's how you can help. Kai took a last look at Sarah and went to the door. She opened it and was engulfed in blinding light. And with that, we conclude Chapter 4, Visit from Sarah, and we also conclude Part 1, Dreams in the Wailing Room. Well, this is trippy and pretty creepy. So Kai's day is starting off. She gets a comm from Lord Rawl of Niles, if you remember, back to the original chapter. Very different from Inez of Inari, the Hospitaller they know most. He's grim and he's talking in nonsense. Kai ends the communication, and then Sarah's waiting for her in her lounge, and Sarah's not acting like herself. She's acting all sad. She's indicating Kai's near death, and Kai's like, I know I'm not, and she says, yeah, you are. And then she says Castle Blanchford has fallen. It's not quite too sure what's going on here. It's obvious to me, obviously, because I wrote it, but I wonder, how well that translates into the uninitiated's head, if you have any thoughts as to what's actually going on. Well, we don't have long to wait. I guess I'm going to go ahead and begin Part 2, The Immortal, Chapter 1, Laika. And this is 12 pages. That's okay. We can do this. So let's go ahead and clear some of this muddle up, shall we? And in this chapter is when a lot of the questions from this book and the previous one get answered, and we actually start plowing ahead, solving this mystery. Part 2, The Immortal. Part 1, Laika. A lithe silver bird flashed across his dreams and spoke. Speak the words. Kay slowly awoke. He had been troubled by strange dreams ever since their encounter with the dead man. It was probably the noxious gases from the dead man's tanks he had breathed in, for they had been horrid, and his dreams dangled in multicolor before him in a nightmare collage. He dreamed of a strange place of wet stone and broken glass, trussed up by lengths of rusty barbed wire. He wandered the place, his sight unable to cut through the preternatural darkness. He was convinced something inhabited the dark with him, something frustrated and anxious. As he awoke, he heard an angry, disembodied voice cry out, "Speak the bloody words!" Coupled with his odd dreams, he was also worried about Sam, resting in their bed after nearly being killed by the Wonderlux Hemolyzer murder device. He loved Sam so. Seeing her injured and weakened was troubling. Sam was so powerful and strong. He had never felt the husbandly need to protect his wife until now. The steady charming of a bell roused him to alertness. He opened his eyes. Kay was lying fully dressed on a small bed that he imagined a villager of meager means might sleep on. It was coarse and lumpy and badly sagging on one side. Instead of the familiar airiness of his ornate bedroom in Zorn Tower, he was in a completely different place. The room around him was small and modest, the walls and the ceiling knotty with varnished wooden boards, instead of the smoky mortared stone of Castle Blanchford. He sat up. His body was surrounded by a colorful selection of aromatic wildflowers that appeared to have been freshly picked and carefully placed around him. Flowers? He had a vague memory of flowers all around him. He rose and looked about, hoping to gather his wits and make sense of this situation. His weapons were gone. His carg was nowhere to be found. Padding his vest pockets, his Poltava was also missing. Sitting at a small table was a smiling woman wearing a jeweled gown of rare beauty. The gown appeared to be old, Vith in style, well made and fabulous, encrusted with blue, red, and green gems. No doubt the gown was priceless. She had long, honey blonde hair stacked up in a heady royal style with sparkling jeweled brooches peeking out of the curls. Her hair twisted down into a long single braid at her back. Her hair was something that might have taken a team of skilled setters hours to accomplish. Seated in the nest of her hair was a golden crown. She had sparkling green eyes, very haunting in their beauty, rather like his mother's eyes. "Good morning, Lord Blanchford," she said in a pleasant voice. The simple wooden surroundings seemed out of touch with the fabulous gowned, green-eyed woman who belonged in a grand manor of ages past. Kay looked around, assessing his situation. A quick sighting revealed no hidden assassins, no aimed weapons or monitoring equipment. He appeared to be alone and unobserved with the woman. He took in her features and recognized her. "Rothabov, George?" he asked. He had seen this woman before in Wham, in his own grove, as he battled the dead man from Mare. Rothabov George, the adversary of his charge, Lady Chrysania of Bloodstein. She smiled and gave a modest bow. "Indeed, I told you we might meet again. I'm certain you have many questions, and I can assure you that at the moment you are safe." She reached out to touch him, and he backed away, his hands searching for his card that wasn't present. She pulled her hand back. "I don't bite," she offered. "And I am your prisoner, is that correct?" Kay asked. Rothaba put her hand to her mouth in a modest way and giggled. "Of course not. How could I imprison such a strong young man? You are our guest, and we are honored to have you. I hope the room is cool enough for your liking. I know the Vith like things cold. I certainly do. There is a door just there to the outside. Try it. You'll find it unlocked." There was a wooden door to Kay's left. He slid off the bed and tried it. The door opened easily into a gulf of cheerful sunshine. He stepped out. "See?" Rothaba called to him. "Unlocked." She did not follow him out. He was in a large, walled courtyard landscaped with many varieties of hedges and flowering plants blended with well-tended ponds filled with slow masses of lazy, colorful fish. Behind him, the cottage he had slept in was painted in a cheery color, 2 stories, with a steep thatched roof and bright shutters adorning simple windows. "Isn't it a lovely day?" Rothaba asked from within, the sound of her voice strong and clear. "I hope you're hungry. We'll be serving breakfast soon." Kay quickly noticed the sky, a rich brownish color like the waters of the Withawell River, clear save for a few cursive writing lines of high-altitude clouds and a single pearly moon hanging on the southern horizon. He noticed blinking lights clustered about on the moon's surface, indicating an advanced settlement was present there. There was only one place he could think of in the League with such a sky, and with an inhabited moon, HOBM, and its moon Lorelei. He was on HOBM, far away from his home world of Cana. Why was he on HOBM? Kay composed himself, determined that he was in no immediate danger, and decided to gather information. He had to have it. "And why, may I ask, am I on HOBM, kind hostess?" The woman inside the cottage considered her response. "We brought you here to protect you. It's a simple answer, and it happens to be the truth. And you are Rothaba of George, the rival and adversary of my charge, Lady Chrysania of Bloodstein." "Oh, I have had many names in my long life. A name, I have found, is fleeting and short-lived. A name is only good for so long, then it must be discarded. And yes, I am a rival of sorts of Lady Chrysania of Bloodstein. She too has had many names. Did you know that? If I may offer an opinion, you were assisting the wrong side in our ongoing contests." "Was I? By serving Lady Chrysania, are you saying that the stories she told me, my cousins, and my knee countess were lies?" "Not lies so much. Incorrect information would be a better way to put it. We shall make all plain for you in short order. We are at your service." "I see." Kay filed the exchange away for later reference. He scanned his surroundings. The courtyard was surrounded by an ivy-covered brick wall that he estimated to be 20 feet high. Beyond the wall were hints of treetops and countless leaves, alive and chattering in the afternoon breeze. He sighted through the wall and saw a dense forest going for miles in all directions. His knowledge of HOBM was poor at best. He had no idea where on HOBM he might be. Fine then, Madam Rothuba. If you are at my service, then when may I expect to be taken home? He asked. When? Whenever you wish. Now, if you like. Unfortunately, I don't think you'll be very happy when you arrive. And why is that? Out in the courtyard, an eastward-facing door swung in. Someone wearing a simple butternut robe with a hood pulled over their face shambled through. The figure carried a straw basket full of fresh grocery items, because you'll not find many of those you love there, especially your knee countess, Rothuba answered. What have you done with my wife? Kay demanded. I have done nothing. Nevertheless, terrible things have been performed upon her. Kay had had enough. I see. Thank you for that sinister revelation. On that note, I bid you fair afternoon. I go to assist my wife. Goodbye. He strode out into the courtyard to take his leave. The robed person who had entered blocked his path. Your pardon, Kay said. He made to step around the robed figure and was met by a soft but impossibly strong hand holding him where he was. The figure in the robe rose up and up, uncoiling like a inflating balloon until it stood over 10 feet tall. It set the basket down and cast its robe aside, revealing a slender, curvy, giant-sized female wearing a pair of tarnished banded mail pants, rugged, well-worn leather boots with frayed laces, and a dinged-up banded mail breastplate. She was wearing a great belt from which hung 2 large swords and several holstered pistols. Her face was pretty but expressionless, and her hair was a fawn color, wrapped up and twisted around with an iron chain. She also had 6 bare arms ending in gauntlets at her wrists, and 6 breasts of descending size fitted into hammered protrusions on her breastplate. A High-Tath warrior! Kay cried, backing up. He remembered seeing this High-Tath in Wham in the chaotic temple of Wilhela Corman Grand, her head emerging from the stump of the old one as the Wonderlux tried to assassinate her. And she had been in his grove watching him battle the dead man. The Cam-X sensors had revealed her presence. The old Vith in him recoiled. The High-Tath were the ancient enemies of the Vith and thought to be long extinct, but here was a live one, towering in the flesh. Lord Blanchford, may I please introduce you to Laika? She was out getting your breakfast, Rothuba said. Laika, you've been wanting to say hello to Lord Blanchford. Now's your chance. Don't be shy. Kay knew from his lessons that High-Tath were alien creatures, partially male and partially female. He couldn't detect anything male about this one. It was slender, hippie, and very female in appearance, though her extra arms, her extra breasts, and her giant size set her apart as an alien species. The High-Tath said nothing. She reached out with one of her giant-sized hands, and he responded with a maneuver Kai had taught him. He seized her by the wrist and in a sudden move pulled her great mass over him and down into the flowery surface of the courtyard, spread-eagled with a cottage-shaking, weapons-clanking crash. That was his lone, unarmed fighting move. After that, he had nothing. The High-Tath's expressionless visage blossomed into an open-mouthed smile, her eyes wide with delight. She stood after a moment and unclipped her belt, tossing it aside, apparently content to fight him unarmed. Wrestle? She said with taut excitement. Kay knew when to stand and fight and when not to. Without his weapons, he didn't have much of a chance against a gigantic High-Tath warrior. He made to waft away, leaving this cottage far behind. With incredible speed, she reached out, her arms stretching like rubber, and seized him. She lifted him effortlessly into the air, pulling him to her face, regarding him close up. Kay struggled to free himself. He cloaked himself into invisibility. The High-Tath gripped him tight and squinted, trying to see him. The pressure of her grip was incredible. Rothuba, still inside the cottage, went on as if nothing were happening. You have much to thank Laika for, Lord Blanchford. She knows you saved her life in Wham from those horrible, horrible Wonderlux. close. I told her the story many times, how you chopped the hemolyzer from her neck. She enjoys hearing it. She, in turn, saved your life the other day in the Telmus Grove as your castle fell to the enemy. Otherwise, you would be dead. She has also watched over and protected you ever since. Kay tried to speak but couldn't get any wind with which to talk. Laika had him gripped tight. "Wrestle?" she said again through her teeth, squeezing the life out of him. Rothaba chuckled. "Laika was hoping you would wish to wrestle with her, Lord Blanchford. It's her favorite thing. She hasn't stopped talking about it. She often wrestles with the bears in the woods, but they've gone into hibernation for the season. Laika, put him down, please. He doesn't understand how excited you've been to make his acquaintance." To Kay's surprise, the giant Hytath put him down and released him. Laika swiveled her head around looking for him, unable to see through his cloak. "Jarl Khan," she said in a soft, accented voice. "It would be nice if you dropped your cloak so Laika can see you," Rothaba said. "I assure you, you've nothing to fear from her." Kay mulled over his options and decided to drop his cloak and allow events to unfold. He could always put it back up again, should it be needed. He appeared before the Hytath. "Jarl Khan!" she said again with joy. She seized him behind the neck, and before he knew what was happening, threw him into the carpet of flowers. She launched herself atop him, placing him into a tight headlock. Her giant-sized body was surprisingly light. "Release me!" he cried from underneath, his voice muffled as she wrenched the headlock tight. "Laika, I don't think Lord Blanchford wants to wrestle right now. I'm certain later, after breakfast, if you ask nicely, he will consent to have a match with you. Let him go, please. It's time to eat." Laika relented and stood. "Jarl Khan will wrestle Laika later?" she asked tentatively. Kay stood indignant. "I will not," he barked. To his surprise, she seemed saddened, as if he had just disappointed a small child. Frowning, she picked up the basket and remained quiet. "I've seen you before in Wham, haven't I?" he said. "In Wohella's temple, and again in my grove as you spied on us." Rothaba answered, "Well, to be frank, that was monitoring, not spying. And technically that was Hrantha you saw in Wham, not Laika." "What?" "Hrantha in Wham," Laika said. "This armor, these weapons, all Hrantha's." Rothaba answered for her. Hytath live several distinct lives within a corresponding head inside their body, rather like a seed ready to germinate. Each head they possess is distinctly different from the others. It's like several people living in one body, each waiting for their turn to take over. Imagine that. I sent my trusted servant Hlantha to Wham to help guide you in the horrid temple of Wohella Corman Grand, and she died there, lost her head to your knee countess, as did another whose name I don't know. Those Wonderluck people tried to kill her. Hrantha tried to kill Sam, Kay responded. "She wanted to test her strength, sure enough," Rothaba agreed. "Always so competitive and short-tempered, Hrantha was. And she lost her head in Wham. The last is Laika. Thanks to you. Were she to lose her head now, there would be no others. That would be the end. There are no heads left inside of her. She is shy and unsure of herself, but she managed to get out of Wohella's temple alive and return home to Hoban. She's so very different from Hlantha, and I love her as my own daughter." Kay could not imagine a giant, flesh-starved Hytath shy and insecure like a little girl. "You said the Hytath saved me? Saved me from what?" Laika raised her head. "Not here," she said in a thick accent. "Enemy might be listening. We go inside. Talk there." "What enemy?" Laika shook her head. "Talk inside." She picked up her belt and motioned for Kay to enter the cottage. He went in through the small door and seated himself at the tiny table. Rothaba seated herself across from him. Still outside, Laika got on her hands and knees and peered through the open door, too large to possibly enter. Her shoulders were wider than the doorframe. Setting her weapons belt aside, she pushed her basket through, and then she somehow compressed herself down, rubber-like, easily squirming into the room. "Now it is safe," she announced. Squashed and twisted about on her side, she reminded Kay of his sister Kai playing in her old dollhouse, which was too small for her growing frame. Holding the basket, she slithered into the kitchen. "Are you comfortable in here like this?" Kay asked. Laika seemed confused as she emptied the basket, setting the fruits and wrapped bits of meat and eggs on the countertop. She tilted her head, struggling with Kay's question. "Comfortable?" she asked. This house is obviously far too small for someone of Laika's size, but she never says a word of complaint, Rothaba said. Hlantha complained about it all the time, but not Laika. She is very stalwart. Laika's network of arms worked in complex unison, turning on the simple stove, grabbing bowls and utensils from cupboards, cracking eggs and beating them, seasoning meats and greasing pans all at once. Kay watched her work and admired the artistry. "So then, I would appreciate an honest discourse, if possible. Again, why am I here?" Rothaba clasped her hands together and placed them in her lap. "To begin, you correctly identified the coffee-brown skies of HOBM. To be precise, you're on the Croatoan continent, Hemsdale Forest, near the Gold Coast. The locals believe this is the finest place in the league to be. The best of everything is available here." Kay internally disagreed, as clearly the Vithlands of Cana were the finest in the league. "I see. And where is the nearest land, sea, and spaceport?" "In the city of Croatoa, about 70 miles to the south along the coast." "Yes, thank you." Even having been told where he was, Kay still couldn't gauge his position. The only area of HOBM Kay was familiar with was Zama and its towering buildings shaped vaguely like people. He would have to study up when he returned home. His father and Sam would be most disappointed with his lack of non-Canaan geographical knowledge. Rothaba continued. "There is an extensive and unused network on HOBM, those scattered about all over, that I can make use of, and so Laika was good enough to bring you here and watch over you. She has hardly left your side in several days. I'm certain she is very disappointed you don't wish to wrestle with her. She has spoken of it frequently." "What network?" Kay asked. "Clant," Laika answered from the kitchen amid the sounds of eggs frying and meat sizzling. "Come, Laika show you. Heat been lowered to 37 degrees Celsius to simmer. Breakfast will not be ready for another 5 minutes, 37 seconds. Come." She crawled away, her bare shoulder blades rubbing against the ceiling, and pulled open the door to a broom closet. She slithered in on her hands and knees. "Come," came her voice from within as the bottoms of her boots disappeared through the doorway. Kay was dubious. "How is it you have obtained the loyal services of a Hytath warrior?" he asked. Rothaba laughed. "I've had Laika and her various sisters with me since she was a child. We discovered her hiding in the very tunnels you are about to enter. The Hytath are not all gone. They still roam about the League. Many can be found here on HOBM, hidden in the wild places. Sometimes they walk amongst us in disguise. Unlike what is said, Hytath can be tamed. Hytath can be loyal. I think of Laika as my daughter, and I love her very much." "Is it a she?" Hytath, as I understand, are both male and female. "The male in her was killed years ago during an attack. His head was lost, his brawny arms dried up and fell off, along with his various other workings. He's buried out in the garden in a tended plot. She is as female as she can possibly get, though she is not an elder." "Jarl Khan," came Laika's voice from the broom closet. "What is Jarl Khan?" Kay asked. "It's a Hytath word," Rothaba answered. "It implies strength and trust. It means she respects you. She is grateful for what you did for her in Wham. She was impressed by your fighting skills in the Grove as she watched you battle the Wonderlux and the horrid dead man of Mare. The respect of a Hytath is not something to be taken lightly." Kay took the compliment, got up, and went to the broom closet. A secret doorway in the back was open, revealing a tunnel heading down. The tunnel was small, requiring full-on hands and knees crawling to enter. His mother, Sigillis, had taught him to love crawling through the tunnels and exploring. He savored the thought of going into the tunnel. "Are you coming, great lady?" he asked, not expecting the regal Rothaba in a priceless gown to get down on her hands and knees and crawl. As expected, Rothaba remained seated at the table and shook her head. No, No, go on. Laika is waiting for you. Hurry! You don't want your breakfast to burn. Beyond the closet was a steep, rather low-hanging tunnel. He couldn't imagine how the gigantic Laika managed to squirm through this snug passage. It was a little tight even for him. At the end of the tunnel was a circular room filled to near capacity with droning computerized equipment wired together in a complicated spider web of braces and thick cabling. Heat poured from the machines. A giant vent nearby pushed in cooling air with a roar. The machines were all tall and rectangular, like a city of dark tombstones linked together with sagging runs of thick wire. Laika crouched off to the side nearby, her armored knees pulled up into her chest. Her fawn hair moved in the breeze of the vent. She sat quietly, arms placed on her legs, careful not to damage anything. Rothaba spoke again, her voice clear and ever-present despite the roar of cooling air. Kay was shocked. As she spoke, lights in the tower-like machines came on, blinking in time with her voice. "This is my Mentralysis deck," she said, her voice strong and vast. "I have many such decks prepared all over HOBM, Cana, and elsewhere. My friends maintain them for me. Here in this humble cottage, we live test the latest models. It is with these systems that I am able to communicate with you now. Obviously, I'm not actually here on the Gold Coast with you. In truth, I am very far away." "What are you?" Kay asked. "I'm a friend," came her voice from the pulsing machines, jewels of light matching her voice. "A friend." He sighted back through the walls of the tunnel to the table where she had been seated. Rothaba was gone. "You see, Lord Blanchford, the life I live," her voice said through the machines. The lights blinked again. "Is it possible? Might I call you Kay?" Kay studied the systems, though he had little knowledge of such things. They were noisy, generated heat and uncomfortable waves, and appeared rugged and complicated. "Did you set these machines up?" he asked Laika. She shook her head. "Then who did?" Rothaba answered. "Laika will show you. My time for now is short, and I must go. Laika, after breakfast, will you please take Lord Blanchford to see Rawl?" "Yes, mother." "Thank you. I shall let him know to expect you." "Where are you going?" Kay said. "To sleep." Her voice faded away. "I shall return." The lights on the machines modulated once or twice, and then scattered into speckled, blinking randomness draped with static. "Hello?" Kay asked. No response. Laika stirred. "Mother sleeps." She sat there, folded up, boots placed side by side on the floor, and appeared sad. A tear leaked down her cheek. Kay saw it. "Laika, may I call you Laika?" She nodded. "Why are you crying?" he asked. She shrugged and put her face into her knees. "Jarl Khan promised to wrestle Laika." Kay was perplexed. "When you say the word Jarl Khan, you are referring to me, yes?" She nodded. "And so I promised to wrestle with you?" She nodded again. "When did I do this?" "While Jarl Khan slept." Kay had no idea what to make of that, but I pride myself on never knowingly breaking a promise. If I promise to wrestle with you, then I shall do so. Offhandedly, he wondered how he would fare unarmed in such a mismatch of size and strength. Laika's normally impassive face transformed into a wide, toothy smile. "When?" she wanted to know. "Later, when things have been sorted out." Laika, with new enthusiasm, crawled past Kay and went back up the tunnel on her hands and knees, her great body filling it up. "Come. Breakfast ready in 1 minute, 12 seconds. Then we go." "Where are we going?" "To see Hospitallers. Mother has requested it. Must be careful and swift. Enemy might be about." "The enemy?" "Spies. Very dangerous. Come." Kay followed her back up the tunnel. Laika exited, crawled into the kitchen, and served breakfast. Kay eating at the table and Laika on her side, stuffed into several rooms at once. "Can this place be very comfortable for you?" Kay asked. "Home," Laika replied. As they ate, Kay felt himself relaxing. Laika didn't seem to be a danger. She ate her breakfast with manners and grace. Whatever story she had to tell, he was eager to hear it. Rothaba, or Lady Chrysania, which was to be believed? Which was the enemy? Which was his friend? And what had happened at Castle Blanchford? Where was Sam? After breakfast, they gathered their things and went outside into the sunshine. Laika stood to her impressive full height and buckled her belt. We walk several miles. That way. She pointed to the west. We go fast. Laika carry if distance too far. I'm certain I can manage. Thank you, though. She checked her pistols to ensure they were fully loaded. 4 LLAG automatics with extended magazines. Good, workmanlike guns. Hers were battered and dirty. Will weapons be required on our trip? Kay asked. Enemy might be in woods. Laika protect you. I can fend for myself. I certainly wish I had my Karg and Poltava. Laika drew one of her swords and offered it to Kay. It was far too big and heavy for him to wield. Thank you. No, it's a bit too big. Laika once again seemed puzzled. She took the sword back. With that, they exited the colorful courtyard and trudged into the woods. Kay looked back. The walled enclosure was cleverly cloaked, the whole thing appearing as nothing more than a prickly tangle of briars. Kay led him deep into the HOBM woods on a narrow, barely passable trail. Striding on her giant-sized legs, she could have easily left him in her wake. However, she slowed her gait, looking back often to make sure he was there. I must admit that to me, Hytath are creatures of fable and legend. A rampant Hytath adorns my house coat of arms, Kay said, a touch out of breath from the effort of keeping up. What this word? Rampant, she asked. Rampant? I think it means to rear back, to elevate your arms approximately level with your shoulders. Never really thought about it much. Laika arched her back and raised her 6 arms, holding them out in front of her. Like this? She asked. Yes, after a fashion. If I may ask, where do you come from? Are there any more of you here? Just Laika, she said. Kay hoped she would offer more, but she was mum. She came to a small fork in the trail and veered to the left. Come, no time. This way. She quickened her pace into a run, moving at amazing speed, covering vast stretches at a stride. Kay couldn't possibly keep up. He wafted ahead, appearing in the trees with a blast. As Laika passed, he wafted again, on, covering miles until she came to a stop. She was impressed. Jarl-Khan moves with many winds. Laika looks forward to wrestling Jarl-Khan. Is wrestling important in Hytath culture? Wrestling, Laika's favorite thing. She took a good look around and listened intently, apparently searching for eavesdroppers. Come, no enemy. We go. Into the woods they traveled, moving steadily west. Laika stopping every few miles, checking for the enemy. They encountered no one. Kay wondered what she was looking for. He sighted about, casting a wide net. The forest was alive with various woodland wildlife native to HOBM, woolly hoofed beasts, strange birds, and various mammalian predators, giving them plenty of space. Far to the west were the beginnings of a great brown mountain range, shimmering in the haze, similar to the rugged Vifland mountain range of home, only they weren't as snow-covered here. It was very pretty, pristine woodland, free of people. A great river flowed far away to the north. Wait! He cycled his sight back a day and saw pockets of people milling about, searching the surroundings, shining lasers and other scanning beams. They were armed. Snipers were set up in the trees, scouts placed in the bush. Winged ships took flight and orbited about. They appeared to be gone at present. I see people, Laika, to the north. They were there yesterday but are gone today. Lots of airborne scanning technology. They were armed. Enemy, she said. And with that, we conclude Part 2, Chapter 1, Laika. So, Hytath have been around for a while, and Hytath were the enemy of the Vith. They were hermaphroditic alien creatures that were brought to Cana by the Elders shortly after the League arrived on Cana at the beginning of the EX time epoch. And the intent of the Elders was to breed the Hytath with the Elder kind, making a larger, hardier Elder stock. The Elders were always tinkering around, not age. Once they get into their prime, they don't get any older. They also made them disease free for the most part. They don't really get sick, the League. And they also made them immortal, but that was a story for another time. And the sisters sort of stamped the immortality that the Elders bestowed upon them out, because they weren't really originally immortal beings, and as we see on camera, a place that's frickin' nuts, immortality isn't necessarily a good thing. So the sister stamped it out. And the elders also wanted them to breed with the high taff to make them larger and stronger. But the high taff proved to be unruly and warlike, and they had a craving for elder flesh. And there were a lot of wars that broke out between the elders and the high taff basically had the run of the north of Cana for a long time, until the elders were like, well, I guess we screwed up with these high taff. We're not going to get rid of them, though. That's something these elders are going to have to deal with. But we'll give them gifts of the mind, and that should even the odds up a little bit. So the elders bestowed the gifts of the mind to the Vith to help them fight the high taff. The gift of strength, sight, stare, waft, cloak, and dirge. That's where those came from, is to fight the high taff. And the high taff they start off life looking like boys, like men, and as they get older, they start growing more arms and more body parts, and the arms that they grow are feminine in appearance. If you have 3 sets of arms, 1 male, 2 female, you're going to have 3 sets of breasts, 1 male, the next 2 sets are female. Also going to have 3 sets of genitalia. They're going to have 1 male and 2 female parts down there. It's pretty wacky and woolly with the high taff. If you lose their heads, or if they lose their head, the next set takes over and a new head grows in place. So the head is like the weakest part of the high taff, is the head. Grow back. But if you only have 3 sets of arms, you can only use 3 heads, and then you're done. And that's where Laika is. She's the last head, basically. They were always great fun as villains. And in this case, I introduced Laika, and I liked Laika a lot. I got rid of all her male parts, just made her a girl. I'd make it easier on me that way as far as storytelling goes. But we'll see what you think of her in the upcoming chapters. So she's taking Kay across HOBM, the Hemsdale Forest in HOBM, to see Rawl, and we've heard his name several times already. And Roth Above George was apparently there but not there, and she's speaking through computerized equipment. So her state is still a mystery, but we will find that out in the next chapter, chapter 2, called The Cult of Rothaba. And it is getting on 4 in the morning. I'm losing my voice. This video is running long. Until next time, this is Ren Presents. I'm your host, Ren. Peace out.